policy says that you are monitored during the performing period. And performing period is the hours between 5 in the morning and 11 at night. Now, that is based on traditional way of doing things, which I said is in ICU. When you move to video on demand or audio on demand, or say, I want this now, how is ICASA going to monitor or even enforce local content? We need to think about that. And that was, I think, my last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just take 2 questions for the CEO, and then we'll get ready to receive closing remarks from our Deputy Minister. The roving mics for the 2 gentlemen. Chair. On the left. Chair. Before the 2 questions, please. Okay, while they're getting the mics, I'll give Pamela an opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Chair. And to the gentleman who talked about the age factor, some of us, age is not nothing but a number. Just wanted to let you know. Speaking of solutions, and that's why we're here, a suggested also contribution to this conversation, the ministers have touched on the work streams. Please, could we add to that list any engagement with the creative space, the industry, the sector, should involve, because I've not seen any, unless they're here and maybe they're somewhere or they've left, the media buyers and the agencies who actually handle the revenue and monetization aspect, and broadcasters who actually handle, they are the gatekeepers. I'm going to use no other reference but that. The agencies and the media planners and the media buyers who, even for digital platforms, decide which big brand ads go where, and the lack of access to that. Please, ministers, take that into consideration going forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight something, because you spoke about the music that is currently owned by the SAPC. Currently, the SAPC has 350 vinyls, 350,000 vinyls. It's South African music. And would like to urge the department, as the shareholder within the SAPC, to please look at that process of trying to digitize that music. Secondly, you spoke about the issue of investment in the artist. Now I'm from the music industry, and currently we're facing serious problems, more so with having our content getting exposure on the radio stations. We've got a serious issue, Payola, especially at the SAPC, where if I sample my music or Tepo samples Lundi's latest album or whatever, that music will never ever see the light of the day, except if Mhlambe you go there and pay something to the compiler so that your music can get a rotation on the radio, on the radio station and create a little bit of revenue for you. So we'd like to urge the government, as a form of investment in the arts sector, they must try to look at the ways and means of changing the system that the radio stations are using for sampling purposes, and also getting our music to be played on the radio stations, because it's totally killing our industry. The last part that I want to mention as well, that would like a government to look at. We've got a whole lot of agencies where people are getting paid handsome amounts of monies. For an example, the story of ICASA. Truly speaking, ICASA is failing us in this country. There was that gentleman, some of us we refer to as the clown at the SAPC, Utlaudi, who introduced the 90% content. But when Utlaudi left, because it was his personal policy, nobody followed up on that so as to make sure that at least the content in South Africa, it increases within the radio station, so that our artists, whether it's performer, actors or whatever, or drama producers, at least they get something out of our stations here in the country. Nobody followed up to make sure that that policy stays. And it just sort of left with him and sort of made him some kind of a superstar within the art sector. So I would like to please Stele Department, your communication as a shareholder within the SAPC, to kindly revisit that policy. And also, please, revisit the structure that is called ICASA. ICASA has completely failed us. But it's embarrassing for a whole CEO, abanje folk 6 million, but 20 years, and only appeal the sentence, not the actual, and only appeal the time as we spend, and not appeal the sentence itself. It's painful, that thing. You are failing us, Sisi. For example, when you listen to Metro, it's like you are listening to something in America. When you listen to 702 on Sundays, they hardly play any of the South African music. So we're appealing, please revisit that structure called ICASA so that it can play its role within our industry, and it makes sure that it levels the playing field so that sikwazi ukutomula as the South Africans. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the last gentleman there at the back.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and for what has come out from the conversation so far. I've learned a lot, as an interdisciplinary artist. I think my question is regarding the approach that we use, to address these issues. I would suggest then that we look at the interdisciplinary approach, because we're speaking both about the content and also the context. There's no much emphasis on the context of broadcasting and media itself, and which is infrastructure, which is actual material that has to be put in place to make these things possible. So I like the discussion about IP, but I think also we need to talk about invention, how we can generate our own models to address our own South African situation. So I will assume that there's invention and models that have been put in place, or people have been writing about this age that we are in. So we need to go to our educational archive, perhaps bring the academia into this discussion, to avoid duplication and tautology. So I think that's what often happens, that we'll have the discussion, and on the other corner of South Africa, there's the same discussion happening. So, yeah. And my last submission is regarding the use of these technologies. I think it's important to also look at the national interest. How will we want to put these technologies in terms of the use? How will these technologies help us to connect with the diaspora, the African communities outside of this continent, which are also our audiences and markets. But thank you so much for an illuminating discussion. I hope we bring other partners, and as it has been apparent that there's a fragmentation, that everyone becomes, get to be part of this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think those were not mainly questions, it was mainly inputs, but I'd like to firstly thank our panel members, but also emphasize that today is not the last day that we engage you. The conversations will continue as we operationalize the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The Commission will have sort of working groups looking at different sectors, interacting with the sectors as we come up with interventions to address all these challenges. You will be consulted, and this will be led by the department. So the conversations are going to continue, but most importantly to note is that the minister has made a call to say, come and collaborate with us. The gentleman mentioned that we are currently in the third revolution. So what we are trying to do as government is to say, collectively with society, with business, what programs can we come up with that can help us to leapfrog into the fourth industrial revolution? And when we do that, we make sure that we don't leave anyone behind, including women, children, youth, everyone. We make sure that we empower everyone so that they are able to participate in this fourth industrial revolution. So this is the call that we are making. For example, about 5-6 years ago, South Africa was leading in the continent in the issues of technology. But at the moment, small countries like Rwanda, Kenya, they are ahead of us because as we are focusing mainly on talking about the negatives. So it's now time to wake up, let's focus on the positives, come up with interventions and say, government, these are programs, we want to partner with you and let's leapfrog into the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you. I'd now like to hand over to our Deputy Minister to give the closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, can I just respond to the ICASA one? Or you are going to respond to it? Okay. Thank you. Ubudi raises an important matter that we need to review. Specifically, he refers to ICASA. Earlier on in my presentation, I spoke of the need for complete overhaul, both regulations and legislations and policies. That would therefore mean we are relooking even the structures. Those that are under our portfolio, they will know that we always say when we introduce ourselves, we say for now, because we are working towards a process of reconfiguration where we're gonna say, is it enough that we have MDTA? Do they still play that role that initially wanted them to do? But are they relevant now that we are going to the 4IR? So those are the considerations that we are having. And we are working, Musa, with academia. Brian, that was presenting here, is from VETS. We're working with almost all the universities. We have a collabs throughout the country whereby we provide digital training or digital literacy programs in all the universities. Most of them we subsidize depending on whatever qualification that you want to run. We have the board members there. I see the chair is gone, but we are doing this. That's why I said we are making a call to say there's everybody that is doing something in the different corners. But if we do not talk to each other, we'll end up duplicating what is there or replicating what is there instead of making sure that we bring the different skills that will uplift us and take South Africa to a higher level. On the issue of the 20-year sentence and appealing, I assume you're referring to the ICASA chair issue. And unfortunately, as the shareholder, we're not empowered by the law to deal with ICASA. So it is Parliament that has that responsibility. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, DM. And also to the panelists and the convener of the panel discussion. Can I just request that you give a round of applause to Minister as well as DM? It's not often that you have political heads in attendance throughout the day. And I think it just shows the seriousness with which they treat this matter. And I'm just hoping that when we leave here, DM and Minister, that there will be action as to what the other speakers have been saying. But Minister and DM, having seated in the audience today, I think what came across to me is the fact that there is still a lot of work to be done. The digital divide is still there, and I think that has come out very clearly. I think also with the presentations that came out through the day, it shows that there are a variety of platforms that our local content can be showcased on, and I think it's time that we take opportunity and advantage of such platforms. But I think also what came across to me, DM and Minister, is the fact that we need to vigorously develop the skills that are relevant for this 4IR. And what the question that then lies to us in the room is, what skills are these and what is it that we're doing to upskill ourselves in order to meet the skills requirements? But also I think what is appealing to us as human beings is the fact that robots can never replace us. We heard that robots do not have emotions, they don't have social skills, so at least that's one area that we can be able to outcompete robots because then they are programmed by ourselves. And I think what came across for me is the fact that how do we utilize these platforms to showcase our content? And I think the panel discussions today were more around the availability of platforms and how do we monetize. But I think it's then for the creatives in the room to say, then how do we go back to our constituencies and create this very content that is so required? Because we always hear that content is king. And I think from the discussions and also maybe wearing my hat as the regulator, we have heard what the SAMPRA CEO has said, that the regulations that pertain to local content are fashioned in an analog environment, and there's a need for the regulator to move in with speed with regards to the upskilling of the regulations. We hear you, sir. And I think also from the fact that ICASA is failing the community, we really do want to apologize, and we are more than welcome we are welcoming all views, and opportunities are available for you as members of the creative sector to engage the authority so that we all move at the same pace. Having said that, I just want to then, before we close, maybe move towards closure, to then invite our DM to come and give us our closing remarks. And maybe just to say that I've been advised that there are some snacks, so let us not leave before we all devour the snacks. Because as you know, in government, if we do not eat or spend or, what we have procured, then it's regarded as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So let us then assemble onto the next room when DM is done. And also just to thank our colleagues who are on the overflow up there, to say that we really also thank the fact that you've been here with us. And on that note, I want to hand over to DM, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Program Director and our Councillor from ICASA. Minister, I think one of the things that our industry should also appreciate is the fact that as the Commander-in-Chief of the 4th Industrial Revolution, you are leading from the front. You are there to make sure that things happen. And that's why our industry should not be surprised to see the minister starting with the business from morning until the end. We really want to be with you and hear even things that we don't want to hear. This, to me, it's a very successful engagement, because you're talking to hardcore issues, you're talking to very emotional issues, you are giving us feedback, and that's what she has to take home, so that as she sits in cabinet, she's able to represent the aspirations of the industry. And I think the engagements were frank, they were robust, and that's how we should be. And you had suggestions that you made to make sure that together we are able to walk the path. She said, let's extend, extending an olive branch to you. Let's hold hands. I mean, that's what Minister said in the morning, and she's continuing to do that. Now, from the engagements we had, colleagues, is that there's a need, going back to what Minister was saying, to coordinate, collaborate, and that we are able to execute and achieve this 4IR. Now, we have identified areas where we need to come together as government. We have identified the Department of Basic Education, the Department of Higher Education. We have identified the DTI. We have identified small business, Department of Communications to say, and the DAC. From government side, we must come together and be organized and be able to consolidate on all these things that we need to do, including the private sector, by the way, whether lottery, the banks, and everybody, because now everybody wants to come into the entertainment industry and assist us. But we're saying, as we get organized from this side, do your part on your side. Get organized, because the case in point is just the copyrights bill and the performance bill. That for as long as we talk in a fragmented way, these ones go and make a presentation there, these ones make presentation, we are not consolidated, it becomes a problem. So from where we are, The minister is going to coordinate at that level of government. Please assist us as industry to be more organized. We know you've got structures, whether NAB, SAMPRA, whatever, all those structures that are there. Make sure that you then coordinate and speak in a bigger voice. We said many voices, one message, and that will make an impact. So we want the creative industry to also engage amongst themselves and then make sure that that is taken forward. On the copyright issue, we're taking the process forward. Minister will engage with her colleagues, but also from your side, be organized so that by the time the select committee or any other structure wants to listen to you, we should not be found wanting. So we don't think this is the last engagement. In fact, this engagement must trigger an opportunity for you guys to come on your own from your different angles to come together. So that's one of the things we have agreed to. Now, central to all this engagement was the gap that we have all identified from the minister's input, from Minister Lindiwe's input, and all of you, you are saying the skills for the industry is very critical. Even all our presenters here were saying we really need the relevant skills for the 4IR. So even at that level, let's sit together and say, this is how we think we should look at all these things. You have the Karabos of this world who are also making inputs. Let's make sure that even those inputs of my energy becoming an energy for a robot and all those things. Let's see how some of those things happen. We are saying there's a need for support for homegrown companies. People were showcasing, all of you know those who are doing all these things in their little corners. And I was sitting here and saying, but you know, and you will pardon me, maybe I'm the oldest in this room. During our time, Minister, and you spoke to it, the Biscope. I mean, we now have to be relevant to our townships and take our content to township and revive those kind of engagements that have been there. Because we don't want you guys, your content to be suffocated by these other big industries that we don't want to talk about. You have an opportunity through these platforms to even take your content closer to your people. So let's go back to those good old days. In our time, they will put, you see these blankets on the windows and create Lififi, and it will go like, now we are in the 4IR. Karabo says we are in the Internet of Things and so on. So I don't want to reveal my age, but you see where I come from. So use this platform. Go, people who used to bring good content, classy content to schools, to all these things, and making sure that you are able to sell your content to those kind of constituencies. So creativity also becomes one of those things, including because we also want to socialize. We go to Stake in a Co because we want to also socialize. So let's do that township thingy and bring the Biscope back. We watch from this, and so we also want to go in those social whatever and have SA breweries closer to us and consume that content while we are enjoying. Akir, now you are talking about the transformation of the sector. We have agreed that it's time for you to look at establishing the charter or developing a charter for the creative industry. We are saying it now. The industry people should start to be coordinated. We know we'll have the academics, we'll have the various departments and yourselves to participate. They'll be calling for you to come and make inputs. We don't want people to cry foul like you were doing now with these two bills, the performance bill and the copyright bill. Be proactive, be there. We want the charter for the sector. We will assist. I mean, Rena will do that through our community radios and other things to make sure that there is that information to you to say, hey, go and meet guys and make sure that you make inputs towards the charter. So that's one of the things that we are saying it should happen. We also are saying there should be specific opportunities for young people. So we have seen how our youth are innovative. Karabo is also talking to some of these things. Focus on young people. So all of us, it's our responsibility. And Minister has put that top on the agenda to say, we don't want our youth to really dissipate into something else. Let's use the creative industry to make sure that they too are able to participate in the 4IR. So that's one of the things we said. We also talked about coordination of funding in the creative industry. So we have agreed on that as well. So it's skills this side, it's funding this side, and then we'll all look at some of those things. So the important thing that you guys are also talking to is relook broadly on the regulatory framework and the policy environment for the fourth industrial revolution. The reason why Minister said, let's withdraw even the ECA. We have the ICT white paper that was also on the pipeline. We all have all those things that must come through. But we said because we are reorganizing ourselves, let's recall all these things and look at how we factor in the issue of 4IR across all the legislations. Remember, she said, we are not regulating for government, we must regulate for the country. Part of what we'll also look at is to say, if these people, bo Netflix, bo Uber, bo Mamang, now I'm going beyond, bo Uber, bo Mamang, are able to tap into our data cost, and there's nothing left for South Africa. What form of levies do we bring in that can also come into the 4IR to say these monies, as they are able to access data through our mobile, whatever, or internet, how do we then ring-fence some of these monies to assist in skilling and reskilling and financing the 4IR? Those are some of the discussions we'll also have to look at. So we must really organize our sector and make sure that using the charter, we're able to get more organized and have many voices, but one message. So we take everything and all the inputs that we made today to say we already have what the resolutions that are there in the engagement of DAC. We are now going to consolidate. We are aware that the Deputy Minister of DTI was in Soweto, also dealing with some of the things that affect the industry. So all of us are going to come together consolidate on all these things and say, this is what the industry is looking at. And this is how we think from government side, we can assist each other. So thank you very much, Minister. I think those are the things that our takeaways, and Minister is going to make sure that we come with a program that responds to all of those things, from policy point of view, from the regulatory point of view, and all other areas that you guys want us to look at. But I know one of the immediate things that is also going to happen is the engagement between Minister and SAMPRA, IMPRA, and SAMRO, and all those. There's an engagement that is going to happen, and we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We are going to take it from where we are to say, how do we deal with the revenue and all other things that relates to it. Thanks very much.